Okay, folks, that is it. It is now just up to me to give some chair's closing remarks. I hope you enjoyed the day. I hope you enjoyed the range of speakers. Dods and I have worked very hard to bring together a diverse range of perspectives and a diverse range of experiences. I have worked hard, I hope, to keep us running and ask your questions and making introductions and so on. Let me try and sum up what I've heard today. And I'm going to start with one of Lexxic's values. One of our core values in Lexxic is empathy. And firstly, as Emma and I were saying, let's talk about leaders, okay? If you open up the senior leadership page in your organization and you look at the bios, it is very unlikely you're going to see someone talk about neurodiversity or talk about their neurodifference. And if you think about it, as I said in my opening remarks, how many times in your own life when you've looked at stuff in the media or you've heard about it from a teacher or a friend, you've thought of dyslexia, autism, ADHD as a negative thing, as that person's problem or something that person has to overcome themselves. And I think this leads us to a medical model approach, a charity model approach, a poor you, this is your struggle, this is your problem. And there is a clear gap in some of the data I showed in leader perception versus employee reality. And I think when you're in the majority, when you're in the privileged, when you're in the neuromajority or the neurotypical, the world is designed for you. It reflects you, it empowers you, it understands you. You don't really see, or you certainly don't feel, and I use the word feel because I think as humans, we're very much feeling emotional creatures, that there's a barrier or there's a problem. And so many of us don't understand what it's like for a 21-year-old with dyslexia to join a system that isn't designed for them, that shames them for being who they are, or when they speak up about their needs, when they speak up about their differences, they're often subtly or sometimes not so subtly told, you're being a bit challenging, you're not a culture fit, you know, we need to bring that positive attitude. And if the stakes in a job are your home, your income, your family, your livelihood, the odds of you speaking up if the environment isn't inclusive are going to be very limited. And what happens in that environment? You hide yourself, you betray yourself, you become angry, you become frustrated, and you feel alone. And that disengages you. That is not you at your best. That is not a motivated and loyal and engaged employee. And so I think so much of what you've heard today, and it's why I use the word thinking differently in the title of this conference, is let's have a conversation with people who are not like you. And going into that conversation, we have to understand, we have to have empathy, we have to learn, we have to unlearn certain things about how we perceive these differences. We have to be humble, we have to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers and we don't know it all, as many speakers have said here today. And that empathy for me also includes leaders, HR managers, line managers, whatever your role is today. Look, neurodiversity is complicated, and even those of us who are professionals in the sector, we don't have silver bullets, we don't have quick fixes, and I understand that's uncomfortable. Particularly as leaders, you get the message that, and especially if you're in the corporate world, don't appear weak, know what you're doing. Showing vulnerability as weakness, it means you're lesser. As a leader, you've got to be in control. Or as a leader, maybe you've seen in the past others who've reached out in other parts of the D&I movement and feel like they've been knocked, feel like they've been hit for trying to be inclusive. And, you know, we have to be honest, most leaders right now are not asked about belonging and in their performance review plans and in their shareholder meetings. So what do we believe? We believe there's 15 to 20% of the population that has a neurodifference. They are your current employees, your future recruits, your supply chain, your customers. They are all over your organization and what your organization is trying to achieve. We heard from Daniel about the neurodiversity paradigm and how neurodiversity can be a workplace asset, not just an obstacle. We heard about Kirsty talking about neurodiversity in the law. You cannot bury your head in the sand of this. You have a duty of care under the Equality Act, and it's very important you understand that duty and provide those adjustments, because there are significant consequences if you don't or bury your head in the sand. We heard from Jane and Rosa at Even Break about attraction and recruitment and progression, and everywhere I look right now, I hear about talent shortage and talent war and skill shortage, and yet our processes are actually filtering out some of this talent and removing some of this talent before they even have a chance to get in the door. We heard from Tio about including talent from a project management perspective, and just because somebody manages a project or does their work in a completely different way to you, that does not mean it's a deficit, and that does not mean it's a challenge. We then had a panel discussion with Micah and Jess talking about managing a neurodiverse workforce, ensuring fair progression. I think for that, it is about offering that flexibility and again, having a non-judgmental approach when people are reaching out for support. And finally, we heard from Uzma on neurodiversity and individuality, and Emma on neurodiversity and intersectionality. And all I will say is there are millions and millions of people under the label or the umbrella of neurodiversity, and we cannot take easy shortcuts or easy silos when we are being inclusive. Being inclusive means being inclusive for all. That means one person with autism may have a completely different perspective on their autistic experience than another. And when we add in factors like gender and race and LGBT and age and class, all of that becomes a really key part of that person's identity and how they feel they belong. So I'm sorry for running 10 minutes over. I'm just going to wrap up by saying, look, I think there is so much amazing talent here. There is so much people with neurodifferences can add to your organization. And the sad thing is we design systems that aren't included for them. We shame them for not performing in those systems. And when they reach out for help, we often shame them for doing so. There is a huge opportunity in the next few years for organizations who are innovators and leaders in this space to get the best out of your talent, to attract new talent, because this is 15% of the population. And if you want to bury your head in the sand, if you don't care, if you say, we will get to this after the 50 other things on our to-do list, I genuinely believe your organization is at risk of being left behind, because that talent that works for you and you are trying to attract will go elsewhere. Because as Emma said, there is a lot more organizations talking about this and sharing this, and a lot more options for inclusivity available as well. I know this is complicated. Please don't feel that you're on your own. There are lots of individual consultants. There are lots of organizations that spoke today. I am the CEO of Lexxic. I am going to champion Lexxic. We work right across all aspects of organizations, the workplace, the education. We are very happy to talk to you. I put my email up at the start of the day. I said, send me your angry emails if I have not answered your question. It's my full name, Aidan Healy at Lexxic.com. I'm really happy to help. Dods will send out feedback forms. They will send out more speaker contacts. You can reach out to them as well if that's who you want to contact.